Hi, really nice to meet you all. Me meet you, term is, and the resume, the CV, the LinkedIn. These are all terms. I didn't actually know what they meant completely. I'm assuming you don't. This workshop is basically tackling every single one of those and talking about a very specific approach to that, which I've called writing your journey. The workshop itself will have this, there's a great little outline there. If you look to the right of the screen, I actually have a bit of a, like these intersecting, overlapping circles. Basically, we're going the other way around than what might be intuitive. So that we'll start with resumes, then we'll walk to like writing the actual story and cover letters and actual kind of essay pieces. And then we'll talk more generally at the very end about how to kind of figure out what your personal brand is, what a personal brand even means, and then using that for interviews, for basically everything else that's been mentioned above. Yeah, so let's get started. About me, my name's Harveen. I'm Canadian. I study abroad at the University of Oxford. I'm a major in psychology, philosophy, and linguistics, which my boss told me was a very artsy-fartsy degree. It's really not. It's a lot of fun, and I get to study, basically, like I've said, the human brain from like 3 very different perspectives, and my professors never agree, so I'm always really confused, but it's really fun. In the past, I have been a psycholinguistics researcher working with multilingualism. I have been a marketing intern in a fintech company, so that's financial technologies, working with artificial intelligence and machine learning. And right now, I'm a strategy and development intern, which basically just means I work on the business side of a biotech startup. The reason I mention all of these is because that's 3 different internships, and I'm not sure if you know, but you get 1 internship for almost like every 20, every 30 that you apply to. So I promise I've put a lot of work and a lot of hours specifically into writing applications, into writing resumes, cover letters, all this stuff. And I know that the first time I did it when I was in grade 10, like this was the most terrifying thing I've ever done. And these days it's like 20 minutes, boom, boom, and then you send it in. However, this isn't just work that I'm putting in with my own research, but includes a wealth of tips from professors. I contacted the University Career Service. They gave me a lot of stuff for this, and also my own personal mentor. She is really cool. She did her PhD with Stephen Hawking, and she's like a genius. I love her. But yeah, that's just me bragging about her. Yeah, okay. So to actually get started, like I said at the very beginning, all these terms, especially if you're a high schooler who's trying to get into like summer internships or even just volunteering opportunities, they'll ask for a resume, they'll ask for a cover letter. People will probably, those kids that show up to high school in like suits will be like, actually, yeah, my LinkedIn's like 3 pages long. And you're like, okay. But like all of those people, right? I can assure you that they don't really know what they're talking about because almost no one does. And that would kind of be my biggest takeaway, is that there's no right way to do any of these things, but there are a lot of wrong ways, right? And you want to stay away from the wrong ways, because if you hand in a resume in rainbow Comic Sans, I promise there is a very low chance you will get the job, especially if it's in engineering. I have a friend who did this for a media job, and she actually got it, but we'll talk about that later. Okay, this is the shameful part of the presentation, my resumes throughout the years. If you notice, the one on the very left, that's me in, I think, grade 10. the one in the middle is like grade 11, grade 12, and the ones on the very right are things that I literally just sent out a week ago. And you'll notice that there's quite a big change. Well, just in the number, in the amount of content I have, but also in terms of how I've organized it. You'll see that I kind of went from a very like different sections. I had a lot of information for how to contact me on the first one, to the very end where I literally just have my email on one of them and my email on LinkedIn. And then in the, let's call it the final version of the moment, you'll notice I also have a lot more material in the middle, which is going to be the experiences part. But basically my point is never keep the same resume, keep updating it like every month, because I'm assuming you're doing new workshops, you're getting new opportunities. You should always have an updated resume. And I have friends when I entered university who literally had their resume from a year ago and were still using it. And I was like, sweetie, you have gotten into the University of Oxford. At the very minimum, that should be on your resume. And they were like, oh, yeah. So that was like my workshop primer, helping my friends through their internship applications. But moving on, basically, this is the question that gets asked the most, right? What do you actually put in? Now, there's a fairly foolproof formula as to what you should have. And that's basically your name, your education, your experiences, and a little section I like to call interests and skills, right? This is not always agreed upon. And the order that you can do these in is also, it kind of sometimes depends on your job and what you're applying for. But 90% of the time, you'll have your name at the top, you'll have your education, then experiences, and then other interests and skills. And the reason I say this is because a lot of the time you won't be applying to a job where your resume is what proves that you can actually do it. You know, the way I like to phrase it is that your resume is always the thing that gets your foot into the door. It's not what gets you the job. And that's something to keep in mind, especially if you're one of those people who spends hours on just choosing the right look for a presentation or a resume, because then you'll spend maybe an hour or two being like, hey, what design do I want for my resume? What template do I want to use? How much color do I want? But you don't actually need to spend as much time on that as you do when preparing for an interview. But yeah, in terms of the actual content, like I said, include your name, include your contact info. Sometimes I'm very wary of people putting too much contact information. So as someone who's constantly moving and almost never is using the same phone number, I actually only put my email and my LinkedIn as of recently. But even LinkedIn, you don't really need. The best thing to go with is probably email and then phone number. If you're applying maybe to a restaurant, you could include your address, as in like, I live near this postal code, so I'm close to work and wouldn't ever be late because of traffic jams or something. But in general, address is kind of like, I don't know, I don't want my boss to know my address. I'm applying to a bunch of different places. I don't want them to know where I live. Kind of just weird. I don't think they want to know where I live. So if they did, that would also be weird. But yeah, as for color, this is also a question that always shows up. If you go back to the previous slide, you'll actually notice that the first one is all black and white. The second one has actually some, there are accents of blue in the second and top right. And the very bottom one is very colorful. So basically what I'm trying to say is stick to black and white. If you're going to put color, keep it minimal and keep it like accents, and make sure it's a color that will show up if you still print it in black and white, right? I've had people who have had like these beautiful resumes, and then you print it in black and white and none of it shows up, and it's like, sorry, I'm not going to buy a color printer for you, you know, and there are 100 other applicants for the job. That's just not going to cut it. So color, make sure it's not the entire thing, make sure it's accented. So I actually put color for the titles of the areas, so education, experiences, interests, and then I think that's actually it. And for the very bottom one, I actually made a different choice. And so this is going to be something I keep saying, but remember, following all of these rules is 90% of the time the best thing to do. Sometimes it's actually better to break the rule. So for the one on the bottom that has like the gray thing in the corner and the design on the bottom, I was actually applying to a technology startup, and from some of my own research that I did, what happened was they found out that a lot of the executive board, or at least the CEO, was actually still doing her PhD, right? And I looked up some interviews with her, and just kind of figuring out like how people work is, I think, very important. And basically the entire brand of the company is something that's very forward facing, that's very new, that's very fresh. And I thought that sending in a normal black and white resume might not actually be the best thing to do. So spice it up, add some color, boom. And then I had the interview, which I'll talk about later, but that was actually a really good decision to make. So like I said before, use your own personal knowledge of the situation. If it's like a software engineering job at Google, maybe not color, maybe just a little bit, right? If you're applying to a management consultancy, just black and white. They're very boring people. But if you're applying to something as a graphic designer, maybe you'd want some color. Another question that I haven't put on the slide is whether to have 1 or 2 columns. I actually asked the career service this, and the head of the career service, his name is Jonathan Swift. He has been basically doing hiring, careers, advice, whatever, at Oxford for like 30 years, right? And his thing was, if I can't hold up your resume at arm's length, fold it in half, and look at the half that I'm looking at and see immediately what experience you have and what you're bringing to the company, I don't want to look at your resume, right? The story he gave was, I'm sitting at the airport, I have 30 seconds and a pile of resumes this big, and I'm 30 seconds for each. I'm going down the thing. If you look it up, actually, there's a psychology study that's been done, and people will look at your resume in an F shape. So if here is a random sheet of paper, basically they'll look at the top, they'll go down the entire thing, they'll read some of the stuff here just to see the headings of your jobs, and then that's it, right? And that's if your resume is being reviewed manually. If it's being sent through a God, what's it called? It's basically like a sifter, and it's a machine program that looks through your resume for specific words that either the industry uses a lot or the job description had. And then they sift through the resume. If you don't have any of those skills, you're out. And the program just throws it away. So basically my point is, try to keep it clean. Try to keep it in one column. Don't have too much clutter, right? You might be able to fit in more information if it's a 2-column one, but really like I said before, your resume doesn't have to include everything you know, and they know it doesn't include everything you know. You're just trying to get exactly what they're looking for, and you're trying to give it to them. You're trying to spoon feed a baby. That is what you're trying to do, basically. In the same way, always send it as a PDF. Even if you're making it in Microsoft Word, Canva, whatever, don't send like JPEGs, don't send Microsoft Word. Not everyone has it. Don't send it in Pages. PDF, best way to go. Pictures. Some people include pictures, some people don't. Not like pictures like drawings, as in like pictures of their own face. Don't do that. That's likely going to violate some sort of human rights law, and they just don't want to go near that. I know Eastern Europe, for some reason, tends to like pictures, but if you're not applying to a company in Eastern Europe, don't send a picture in with your resume. As for objective statements, that's another thing. You really don't want an objective statement. Your objective is to get the job. That's basically it. You really don't want an objective statement. It's a waste of space. Education. Sorry, I spent a lot of time on that just because those are general tips, do's and don'ts, or whatever you want to call it. Education. So mention the name of your high school, mention what you're studying. If you're studying the International Baccalaureate, put IB. If you're studying a full AP, put AP. If you're studying honors, put honors. Like, just mention specifically what program you're doing. It might be worth mentioning your GPA if it's like, I think the American system is 3.9 plus or 3.7. It's out of 4. If you like your GPA and if you think it'll help, mention your GPA. I usually tend to put maybe maximum 2, like leadership positions or extracurriculars that I do as part of school, but I'm not actually going to mention in the rest of my resume, just as something to be like, hey, I'm a person, I have interests, and these are some things I'm really good at. Education, maximum 1/5 of your resume, if you look at the sheet of paper. As for experiences, this is literally the life and soul of your resume, right? This is where you talk about why you should actually get the job. And this is what will actually get you the job or get you the interview. Mention. Sorry. Okay, yeah. Things you should mention. Internships you have, student leadership, scientific research, and coding projects. Other things, yeah, basically it's pretty self-explanatory. This is the stuff you do. And I'll actually delve into talking about how to talk about your internships or experiences in the next slide. But before we do that, interests and skills. This is something that not many people do, in that they actually tend to divide awards, interests, skills into like half their resume, and it's all different areas, and it's like, cool, you like rowing, why do I care? Think of, honestly, the way to think of it is, like I said, only put what you need, don't put too much. So the way that I decided to divide the whole interest and sections thing into one is kind of look for themes of what you like to do. So if there's something, if you're particularly active in being a rights advocate, which is one of the things I have on my resume, put all that stuff under community service or advocacy, and then put like 4 bullet points or just with 1 line for each thing, right? You shouldn't have too much. For coding languages, programming languages on the left, and then mention it on the right. And you should probably have your projects that you've worked in the experiences, so don't talk about the languages themselves too much. Same thing for if you're doing a lot of sports and then, or teamwork even, and then you can list your teams on the right. Okay. Now kind of talking about one of the problems I've seen pop up a lot in resumes is people being like, hey, I have too much blank space. Or if it's a high school student, hey, I don't know what to put on there. I know I need a resume, but what do I actually put on it? Basically, don't try and fill it up too much is my biggest piece of advice here, I think. Just because if you do, that might actually hurt your resume. And you'll notice I actually ended up doing that here with my grade 10 one. I had a bunch of stuff under education. I had like 3 things under experiences and then a bunch of awards. And honestly, it's not bad. And I think this did actually get me into a couple internships. But the thing you want to focus on is explaining like there are a lot of mistakes here. And one of them would definitely be just that I'm saying a bunch of stuff about my languages under education. Like this could be completely restructured. And I see people making the same mistakes, just trying to get a bunch of stuff on their resume. And so they forget everything else about how to structure it, what to put under which category, etc. So the main thing to keep in mind is everybody knows you're a high school student and no one's expecting you to have changed the world, right? Even if it sounds like people your age are changing the world. No one is changing the world. I say this as someone who walked into university being like, I am not supposed to be here. And everyone has started organizations and like, I don't know, hiked the Himalayas or whatever. And you're sitting there like, yo, you haven't done any of that. It's all right. You really don't need to like fill your resume up with things. Just put what you have, like I said, back to the basics, right? Education, maybe put like classes you're taking right now that apply to the job. Talk about your extracurriculars. That's something that people don't put in experiences, which it's like, no, talk about it. Put it front and center. Oh dear. Okay, next one. This is probably the thing that I think you guys should really pay attention to, is describing your responsibilities. If you look at the very top, it says very kind of generally watery stuff, right? Something you want to remember is it's not what experiences you have, it's what you do with those experiences. It's what you learn from those experiences. If I just put the thing on the top on my resume today, it basically just means if I read this, I'd be like, oh, okay. So she read a bunch of papers, she ran participants, like, okay, that could be 2 participants, still participants. And then she made a summary, like, what does that mean? So basically what I want you to be doing with every single one of your bullet points on your little job experiences section is be specific and be unique. Always quantify your achievements. Always put numbers to it. If you can put a number to it, put a number to it, right? And you'll notice I did that with the second one. So I kept the very first line, but I also added that I used R, which is a statistical programming language. You just do it for, most researchers use it, for linear mixed effects regression analysis across data from 68 language combinations. I haven't actually changed much, you'll notice. All I've added is details about what program I used, how I did my research, and then like 68 language combinations. Does that actually make a difference very objectively from the top line? No. Does that look a lot better to someone who's scrolling through a resume? Yes. The second line, I put 3 different experiments for the MALD data set. This isn't really an achievement of mine in that I didn't create the largest lexical data set in the world, but it's still worth mentioning that you've worked with a lot of data. So try to look at your experiences and be like, how am I going to sell this, right? And then this is something I wasn't so sure about. Career Service told me to do is be specific about like the government representatives, Ministry of Education, I put that. But in every single line, what I'm trying to do here is quantify my achievements, quantify what I did, talk about my responsibilities in a way that's very specific and in a way that someone else won't be able to do. So if someone else in the same exact lab did the same thing the next year, would they be able to write the thing on the top? Yes. Would they be able to write the thing on the bottom? I highly doubt it, because they'd be doing a different project with different focuses and different programs, right? You want to be unique, you want to be specific. 2 things to remember when you're doing the job summaries. Now, templates. I don't like templates. I really hate templates. I cannot stress enough how much I hate templates. But that is because I am the type of person who will spend hours on choosing my colors for a rainbow loom bracelet, right? I don't know if rainbow loom is still a thing, but I remember spending hours on it. And the same thing would apply if I used a template, right? The very first resume that I had, which was the black and white one, I actually used a template from Canva. And I think there's some benefit to that, in that you get a very structured piece of paper and you just plug your information in, right? With that said, I also think that it's worth just getting a blank sheet of paper on Google Docs and typing the stuff in, following basically the same categories and things that I had on my previous slides. With that also said, here are some great template programs that I have actually used in the past and that friends of mine have used. Like, templates aren't evil. I just think that it's a slippery slope to just not putting the right amount of effort in and kind of just working with a template instead of focusing too much on the aesthetic than the actual content. I think that's why I'm not a big fan of templates. These are the things you can use: Microsoft Word, Google Docs, Adobe Illustrator. That's basically it. Here are some more do's and don'ts. This is so much content. Basically, starting from top left, like I said before, evidence, not assertion, right? So for every single job description that you're putting there, use 3 to 5 bullet points. Don't use less than 3. Don't use more than 5. Use active verbs. This is something that will pop up over and over if you ever look up resume tips online. You can actually find lists of verbs to use. So if you're going to be like, hey, I read some papers, right? If someone asked me what I did in my internship, I'd be like, yeah, they made me read a bunch of stuff and I hated it and I fell asleep. But I'm not going to put that on my resume. I'm going to put that I analyzed scientific research and then mention the field, right? Basically what that means is, like I said, if you're holding the sheet of paper at arm's length and your eyes are scrolling through the piece of paper, you want to be able to see those keywords and be like, analyzed, okay, kid seems like a self-starter. Just use active verbs so it doesn't sound like you're only doing what is expected of you. It's just a psychology thing. Another thing, like I said, quantify your responsibilities, put numbers to everything. Okay, another thing, don't do more than 1 page. No one is important enough to have more than 1 page. People who have more than 1 page should have at least 10 years of experience in the industry. And I say this having talked to a couple of recruiters who have told me if they see more than 1 page, they're throwing it away. And that's mean of them, but capitalism is mean. So there's that. Basically, like I said before, you're trying to make a great impression in a very short amount of time, right? And crucially, the resume is not you. The resume is a sheet of paper where you're putting down your greatest hits and saying, ta-da, look at me, you want to talk to me, right? That's it. So actually putting that to use, don't include stuff everyone can do. A lot of people put down Microsoft Office having used Microsoft Word once in their lifetime, and then they're like, proficient in Excel. You are not proficient in Excel. Only bankers are proficient in Excel. Or stuff that's not relevant. If you're applying to an engineering job, you might not want to put dog sitting. Though, important stuff to do with that, and this kind of goes into the extracurriculars. What you really want to do if you don't have previous experience in the industry is take away, look at what you do have, look at what experience you do have, and this might be internships in, let's say, marketing, or this might be working with your school band, and look at the skills that those things require, right? So off the top of my head, teamwork. It requires likability of some sort. It requires dedication. These are things you're trying to show through your resume anyways. Because even if you've been working at the top 3 companies of the world, if you're not doing your job right, then why would anyone want to hire you, right? So you can actually apply that the other way around as well. Even if you don't have a lot of experience, but you have done extracurriculars or you have done an internship in a completely different industry, look at those things, look at what it taught you, like objectively, teamwork, all those like soft, mushy words that get thrown around. That's what it taught you, soft skills. You can put those down as well. Extracurriculars, if you got elected to something, put it down. If you got chosen for something, put it down. No one wants to work with a jerk. That rhymes. Great. And like I said, individualize your resume. It should be changing with you. You're not staying the same every month, so should your resume shouldn't be staying the same either. What I do is I have a Google Doc with my like working copy of my resume, and then I'll actually make a copy every single time I'm applying to a job, and then I'll go through the job description and just straight up lift words out of it, put it in my resume. So if they're saying they're looking for experience with HubSpot, I'll mention that I worked with HubSpot. I don't think I have that on my resume right now just because I didn't need it for biotech. But take those keywords, put it in. Steal, plug, whatever. You want those keywords in it because you want them to know that you read their job description, that you know about their company specifically, and that you actually know what you're talking about when you're applying to the industry, and you're not just sending like thousands of copies of the same resume to a million different companies. That's it. Okay, finally, we're done with resumes. We can move on. I hope that was helpful. I think we'll have questions at the very end, but that was a large part of the presentation anyways. So writing your journey, right? What does this include? What the heck does that mean? Okay, so basically this entire section is going to include personal statements, cover letters, motivational letters. All three of these are kind of the same in that they look for the same things. Personal statements you might need for university or internships or like research jobs a lot of the time ask for personal statements. Cover letters are kind of the same thing, but more for industry. And motivational letters are like, why are you applying for this job? Here's the main three things that you want to convey in your entire application, actually. 1, you take responsibility for your work. 2, you achieve things. 3, you're nice to have around. These are the 3 messages that you want every single part of your application to show. You want your resume to be showing it, you want your essays, cover letters to be showing it, and you want your interview to be showing it, right? In terms of general tips for, actually, I'll mention this later. What should you actually have on a cover letter? Introduction. It should be 2 to 3 lines, and basically introduce yourself. Hey, my name's Harveen. I'm a student studying PPL at Oxford. I heard about this job from Sarah, who is an engineer at the company, right? And that's actually really special. If you know someone at the company, mention that they told you about the job. If they didn't tell you about the job, contact them and be like, hey, I heard about this job, so that you can still say that you talked about this job with them. Knowing someone on the inside is always a plus. It's not a negative if you don't know someone. That's, I think, important to remember. 2 to 3 lines max, not really anything important. Next paragraph, right? Press enter, next paragraph. Then you talk about the job itself. Talk about why you're interested in that job at that company, right? Remember, you're tailoring this letter, your application, to that organization. Don't go on their website and then look at their promotional materials and just be like, yeah, you guys have dogs that care about your workday, and I think that's great. That's not what you're looking for. You're looking for things that set that company apart from their competitors, including cultural fit, including what they work with, and saying, hey, this is what really attracts me to this company. And it doesn't honestly, it doesn't have to be as fake as it sounds. All you have to do is sit down and be like, why do I want this job at this company other than just wanting a job at a company? So yeah, that's basically that paragraph. Maybe 5 sentences maximum. It really shouldn't be that long either, because this is just saying why you're interested personally. However, if you're talking about some of your own interests, so if I'm applying to a law firm that specializes in human rights, I might actually talk about, hey, I know that you guys worked on this and this project, and I'm actually interested in human rights. which I've showed through A, B, and C, right? So maybe like, it should be most of your page is the paragraphs about why you and why this job. So the next paragraph, let's say this is exactly about you. This is only about you. This says why you're suited for the position, why they want to pick you. Talk about your relevant skills, talk about your experiences, talk about the knowledge that you have, match that to the requirements that they've outlined in the job description. Something to remember, don't just say, in 2016, I had an internship here. This is what I did. In 2017, I had an internship here. In 2018, I did this. That's not what you want to do. Look at the bigger picture, right? If you've been doing marketing internships throughout these years, talk about, I actually have extensive experience in marketing, specifically working with technology startups, with up-and-coming startups. In 2016, I worked with so-and-so. I also worked with so-and-so in the following years, working specifically on developing a marketing strategy that used A, B, and C programs and really set apart their programs from competitors by A, B, and C, right? You want to be specific. You want it to be not just a rundown of your resume, and you want it to be telling a story. Every single time your English teacher says that you should have a proper character arc, this cover letter is your character arc. You're starting from someone who doesn't know you at all, and at the very end, your character arc as a proper, developed, intelligent, yet humble person has developed. And that's basically it. With your conclusion, you say, hey, I'm so excited to be able to apply, and I look forward to hearing from you. This is something that also my career service added. If you're writing to a specific person, as in you know the name of the hiring manager or you know the name of the person who runs HR, write their name. If not, just write yours faithfully and address it to dear sir. Sorry? Okay, yeah, just address it to dear sir or madam. And that's basically it. Back to general tips, now that we've covered the structure. Write to a named person, always check your spelling and grammar. Stick to professional fonts. This doesn't mean write in Times New Roman. You can use Garamond, you can use Georgia, you can use just fonts that you'll see on professional like letters, right? Don't put it in like wingdings or something. I'm sure you know that, but always good to mention anyways. Don't repeat your whole resume and make the letter different every time. Another thing is your resume, after you have that general copy, you should be able to fix your resume for any job in like 20 minutes, right? What you do want to spend time on in an application is the cover letter, because that's what puts a face or a person to the piece of paper that you have as a resume. And you might say, Harveen, your letter is a piece of paper too. Yes, it is. We're gonna ignore that. Because this is kind of, the cover letter is kind of supposed to have you ever met those people who are really accomplished, but are really rude about it, and they brag a lot? Yeah, you don't wanna be that person. The cover letter makes sure that you're not that person, right? You want to talk about what you've actually learned outside of, actually, I worked at Google over the summer. No one cares, Brad. So that's basically it. This is a slide with an actual kind of basic cover letter written out. I think you guys should be getting the slides. You don't have to write this all down. You should be getting the slides, so you can just copy it from there. And I included it just so that templates for cover letters are great. You can find a million online. I recommend that you go online, actually. But this is something that I've used recently. More information, more words. Okay, remember the context. If you're applying to a job that's having you write a personal statement. They're having you write a resume. They're asking you to answer 5 different questions about where you see yourself in 20 years and what your greatest weakness is. And that's all happening before the interview. Don't overlap. You want to put as much different stuff on there as you can, because if it was supposed to overlap, they just wouldn't ask, right? So you want them to be very much holistic. That's what the buzzword is it's a holistic application. They're trying to figure out who you are. I have a friend whose law firm actually asked her to do a personality quiz before sending out interviews, and they like roasted her in the comments basically. And this was a pre-written thing, so I guess they just roast half their applicants. But they were like, it sounds like you really like to take charge, but you're not comfortable with teamwork. And this is in November, right? We're having our finals, and that's how the firm gets back to her. It was heartbreaking. But kind of like I said, a lot of firms like have you do these weird things, like hoops to jump through, and make sure that you're not saying the same things each time. Another thing, this goes back to the same stuff I said about the resume. Be specific, be unique. How many people can write the same, can have the same internship, even though they're doing different things, and still write the same resume as you? That's what you want to be focusing on. No one should be able to do that. What you're bringing to a job isn't just your ability to do something, it's your ability to do something your way, right? So this is an example from a friend of mine who just finished her master's at uni, and she's doing her PhD at MIT now. And so she does physics. She talked about physics. But basically, 90% of people who are applying for a PhD in biology, in evolutionary biology, will have read some of Charles Darwin, right? What sets you apart isn't reading The Origin of Species. What sets you apart is if you read that book and you're like, you know what? Let me prove this wrong, or let me prove this right, whatever you want to do. Like, what do you actually do with that experience that everyone else has done? Finally, my favorite part of the presentation, personal branding. Now, when someone said personal branding to me at the career service, I wanted to slap them in the face and be like, I want a resume and a job. I don't care about personal branding. I'm not a marketer. No, you are always a marketer. This is the way I was joking about. I don't know how many of you will be doing college applications, but you are basically selling yourself, right? College applications are you putting yourself in front of a recruiter and being like, look at the traumas I have suffered. Look at the things I have done. You want me. You want me. And that's it. Same thing about personal branding. Here is kind of a slide about more of me talking about why personal branding is important. Basically, Jeff Bezos, still don't know how to say his name, but he said about a personal brand that it's what people say about you when you're not in the room, right? And a great way of kind of exemplifying that, I think, is basically, I'm assuming you can read, I won't actually repeat the slide, but I had an interview like last week, and it was actually with that neurotechnology company that I was starting about. They do projects with rehabilitation and virtual reality environments. And what's great about this company is the CEO, the founder, she's actually a graduate from Oxford. So I was like, hey, lady, this is so cool. You do neuroscience, I do neuroscience. And this was actually a sentence in my cover letter. We have so many things in common. You love neuroscience, I love neuroscience. You went to Oxford, I went to Oxford. That was the, I think, opening line of my second paragraph for the cover letter. And like I said before, it's not very professional. I would literally never send that to a law firm, but I also knew that this was an up-and-coming startup, and startups have that culture where they like you to be super enthusiastic and they like you to be very like open with your words, not formal at all. So I didn't actually know if she was hiring. I came across her on LinkedIn, saw her company, and was like, okay, that sounds cool. I'll send her a message on Instagram because she has a science communication page. I don't know if you follow like those scientists on Instagram these days. But yeah, she has one of those. She replies a month later and she says, "Hey, we're not actually hiring anyone because, hello, Corona, and no one has money anymore. But you know what? Send me your resume, send me a cover letter, and I'll see what I can do." Right? And so I did. And the interview itself actually was at 8 a.m. my time, which meant I had literally zero sleep. And I was kind of just running on coffee and air. But that's not the best way to start an interview. But my plan going in was using my personal brand, right? So same thing I said before, is you craft your personal brand in a way that you want to be remembered as this person, as this thing, even when someone has interviewed 30, 50 different people. You don't want them to say, "Hey, that's the person who did this and this." You want them to say, "Hey, yeah, that's a girl who was really excited, who had some great experiences in this, and who actually made some really intelligent comments, asked some great questions about the kind of the best ways that I decide to do this is," and you'll be working on this in the next slide actually, but I kind of took 3 things that I wanted to communicate, right, through the entirety of my application. Fun and approachable. I had a colored resume. That was my version of fun. I think other people are more fun, but that's okay. Organized in my chaos. That's just how I run. I think that's very clear in the way I talk. And then driven and passionate was also just me reaching out on my own, kind of having enough initiative to do things, right? And the story that I told when a lot of people ask you, "So tell me about yourself," right? That's something where you can say, "Yeah, I'm a student, I do this," right? And it's a question that's going to be asked in every interview. Here's the pro tip. Here is the life tip. This is the life hack. Take those boring questions and make them the best interview that person has sat through in their entire life. You want to tell a story, and that's going to be it. So that's how I started my thing. I was like, hey, this is why I think one of the most interesting parts that I'd like to talk about is when I applied to Oxford, which was literally because of Mamma Mia 2. I don't know if any of you have watched Mamma Mia 2. It is a wonderful movie, strongly recommend it. And there's actually a scene in the movie where they're singing around and they're dancing around Oxford because I think it was Donna who graduated from there. And that's my story of why I applied. And then I tell her, like, I didn't actually know anything about the university. I just kind of went through, I took each challenge as it came across, and I told the story in a way, not that, yeah, it was really stressful and I hated the application process, because that's true too, but I painted it in a way that shows that I take initiative, that I don't actually kind of shy away from challenges. And at the very end of the meeting, those are the things that she explicitly told me came across in my interview. So in terms of the actual stuff, I asked all of you to have a piece of paper with you, and this is basically the exercise that was for. In case you guys have been writing notes, that's amazing too. Thank you, I love you. Thank you for writing notes. But basically, if you can, try to write down 3 things that you want to be remembered as. If you have your teacher giving you a recommendation letter, what do they want to talk about? Do they want to talk about how hardworking you are, how ethical you are? Do you want them to talk about how you are involved in everything? You have so many different interests and it's never like you're drowning in them because you have such great time management, things like that. Do you want to talk about how you always make someone feel like they're in the room with you, even through online lectures, how you're always there for people, right? Choose those 3 traits, and remember that every single time that you're going to be interviewed by someone, they're taking notes, and they're not just taking notes on what you say, they're taking notes on how they feel about you, right? No matter how objective people try to seem, in the world, and I know that meritocracies are a big thing now, people will always be affected by their own personal bias about you, right? You want their bias to be positive, and basically call it a psychology trick. You want to influence how they look at you, and not just in the objective facts, in the subjective ways. Same, like I said, it's not the content of your resume that's getting you the job. My high school physics teacher really hated me because I slept through all of his classes as soon as I got into university. So I was the very definition of, I think they call it like senior sloth or something. Yeah, I didn't do any, I basically dropped all of my AP exams, didn't do anything, didn't ever have my sheets. And he told me this, and he was like, Harveen, there are thousands of kids who get accepted into Oxford, into Cambridge, Harvard, Yale, Princeton, right? Just because you get in isn't going to have your face plastered across the walls. And that's a direct quote. And I still remember it because I hate him for it. But it's something to remember because it's true. It's not what you have. It's not the names on your resume. It's what you learn from it, and it's how you come across, right? You're never selling. If I could make a clone of you and take out your personality, and that person gets hired but you don't, that means you're doing something wrong when you get interviewed. That means you're not coming across as the amazing, well put together person that you are. And this is another thing you can do, is this is going to rely on you not just tuning in to this workshop and never thinking about this again, but basically if you can set that sheet aside about what you'd like to be perceived as, and think about what other people actually do perceive you as, right? Go ask your friends, be like, hey, if you had to describe me to a random person on the street that you're meeting and I'm showing up in 5 minutes and they're like, who's so-and-so? What would you tell me? What would you tell them about me, right? Tell me 3 things that you think are pros about me and 3 cons. Drop that list. Maybe ask like your best friend, your mom, your boss, and look at what you can do to get from where you actually are to where you want to be, right? So that might mean taking more responsibility for your actions. That might mean working on cool projects. If someone says, I think you're really good at code, you're like, okay, so maybe what can I do with that? Can I teach other people at middle school? Like teach some kid a small Python project, I don't know. Basically, yeah. If someone's mean to you, that's okay. People told me I was stubborn. I don't think I'm stubborn, but moving on from that. Basically, yeah, like I said, this is all about personal growth. Personal branding requires a lot of introspection. It requires you to look at yourself and be like, hey, this is what I'm really good at. This is what I'm not good at. I'm going to focus on what I'm good at. And I'm going to work quietly behind the scenes on the stuff that I'm not great at, right? What you want to really do is take those 3 qualities that you would want to be, the ideal you. I call it Harveen TM, like the trademark logo, because that's the person I want people who are working with me to see. And then I can have my breakdowns around my friends. But the people that my professors, the person that my professors see, the person that my bosses will see, is someone who is ideal, someone who is perfect, and someone who doesn't make mistakes. That's at the interview process. I promise you can make as many mistakes as you want once you actually get the job. People are very nice. They understand that you're high school or university students. That's basically it. And also having those 3 things makes it very easy to answer someone when they're like, who are you? Tell me about yourself. And yeah, final tip, control your online presence. I think I mentioned Frank from Alpha Data Phi. I don't want to know how drunk he was with his frat brothers last weekend. If I can look up his name on Facebook and be like, Frank, that's not right. He's not getting the job. So Instagram, private. Twitter, private. Facebook, private, right? Your boss shouldn't be able to look you up and find all these great pictures of you drinking under 18, which I'm sure none of you do. 18 in Canada, 21 in the States. And that's basically it. Questions, comments, concerns, you can contact me on Instagram at itsharveen, LinkedIn, also LinkedIn/itsharveen. Here's another kind of cool thing. If you can try to have all your usernames the same thing, that usually helps, because you can kind of be like, if you look up, I think, Harveen Instagram on Google, you'll find some random person who I don't know. And it's just easier to be like, hey, that's not me. I have the same username across all the social medias I use. And that's basically it. If you guys want any help, if you set up a first draft and used all these tips and still don't really know where to go, I can take a look at your resume. You can contact me by DM, and I'll send you an email where you can send the whole thing, send a cover letter, whatever, and just be sure to remove like your personal identifying information, because I'm sure you don't want me to have it, and I also don't think I want to have it. So yeah, privacy rights, GDPR and all that. And that's basically it.